Welcome to Moments with Marianne. I'm so delighted we're spending this time here today. We have a very empowering show coming right up with special guest, Bob Burg, and he's here today to share with us human nature and happiness. Now, I know many of us have probably never considered that there's even a connection between human nature and happiness, and Bob Burg's here to share just that. Many of you know Bob. He's one of my favorite people. He's a sought-after speaker at company leadership and sales conferences on the topics at the core of the Go-Giver books. A former television personality and top-producing salesperson, Bob has shared the platform with some of today's top business leaders, broadcast personalities, coaches, athletes, and political leaders, including a former U.S. president. So let's welcome to the show, Bob Burg.
Hello, Marianne. Always so great to speak with you.
Well, it's always such an honor to spend time with you, Bob, and I can't wait to dive into this topic. I know something you say often is that one of the reasons why the Go-Giver methodology is so effective is because it's totally congruent with human nature. So what do you mean by that?
Sure. Well, really, it's simply that shifting your focus, and this is really so important and where it all begins, shifting your focus from getting to giving. And when we say giving in this context, we simply mean constantly and consistently providing immense value to others is not only a more pleasant way of conducting business, it's actually the most financially profitable way as well. And, not for some way out there, woo-woo kind of magical, mystical reasons. Not at all. It's actually very, very practical and rational, and it does align with human nature. When you're that person who can take your focus off yourself and place it on helping others, on discovering what they need, want, or desire, and helping them to get it, to help them overcome and get past problems and challenges they have, to help bring them in some way closer to happiness. Well, people feel good about you. People want to get to know you. They like you. They trust you. They want to be a part of your life. They want to be in relationship with you. They want to do business with you if that's appropriate. And they certainly want to be your personal walking ambassador. In other words, they really want to give value to you, which of course benefits everyone.
Well, I can say you're definitely the go-giver in walking action, because most people really resonate with your messaging, especially when it comes to business and connection. So your book, The Go-Giver, has been a huge piece of my success. And I'd love for you to share with us, what do you mean by go-giver for those that are new? Exactly what is a go-giver?
Well, I mean, I think what the Go-Giver sort of did, in a sense, was outline a set of principles that people could use to feel good about themselves as they were doing very well in business. In other words, it sort of gave people, for lack of a better word, permission to operate as they wanted to operate. You see, most of us have been taught, and I think it's whether this is a combination for most people of upbringing, environment, schooling, news media, television, where there's so many messages, negative messages out there concerning money, concerning prosperity, concerning business, concerning sales, certainly, right? And I think, generally speaking, we are built, it is part of human nature to want to contribute to the world, to want to bring value to others, to want to be part of something bigger than ourselves, but mainly to make a contribution to life itself. And we do that in in business, entrepreneurship, sales. We do that through our products and services. And it basically said to people, yeah, I can focus on being of value to the world around me. Okay. And by doing that, as a result of doing that, I will also be very, very well compensated. So I think that was a message people related to, because it does, it is congruent with their nature.
I think it really resonates with a lot of people because they can say, while I'm doing well in business, I'm helping others do well as well. And it really fulfills me.
Exactly, exactly. Well, that would be the person who just operates in a way in which they place other people's interests first. Now, not in a way that is um, self-sacrificial, not in a way that's doormatty, not in a way that is martyrish, not one single bit. It's simply, again, understanding human nature, that people are going to do business for their reasons, not yours. Nobody's going to buy from you because you have a quota to meet. Right? They're not going to buy from you because you need the money, and they're not even going to buy from you because you're a really nice person. They're going to buy from you, not you, but I mean any of us. They're going to buy from a person because they believe they'll be better off by doing so than by not doing so. The go-giver way is simply understanding that, and it's focusing on the value you're providing the other person. Again, not in a self-sacrificial way, not at all. It's in a way that's congruent with your personal values. It just happens to be the way that business is done for success, both immediately and sustainably.
So, what if somebody, they have not read your book, which I highly suggest they do? The Go Giver is a great book.
Thank you.
But let's say they haven't read it, but they're looking to understand what their clients need, but they don't really know where to start. What would you suggest?
Well, you start really by, and as simple as this sounds, you start by asking and listening. Really, really listening. Not listening just so you understand enough that you can close the sale. Because if you do that, you're probably not going to end up closing the sale, because people who listen just for that don't end up understanding enough about that other person, right, in order to earn the sale. So it's a matter of asking questions and then listening to what that person says, listening truly to understand what they want, what they need, what they desire, what their values are, what challenges they have that they need or want to overcome. It's listening with an understanding of what insights you can provide so that challenges they may not even know they have, or solutions they may not even know are out there, you're able to communicate. So you're able to connect the benefits of your product or service with what's truly going to help them. But you do need to be willing to really listen and learn.
Does that mean also being able to be a resource for clients or people that maybe take them a little bit outside of your level of work?
Something being, it's a great point, because being a resource for others is first and foremost. And it's a great way to be able to communicate your trustworthiness to that person. When they really know that you have their best interest at heart, that's when the magic really happens.
I love that. Just like I love your books. They're amazing. And I know we've talked about them before, but I just can't stress enough how much of a game changer The Go Giver and all of your books are. So just, for life and business, you name it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Oh my goodness, Bob. Well, do I know we're talking about human nature, and that's a term I think we hear kind of thrown around quite a bit, but people never really kind of dive into what that means.
Mhm.
So, what is it?
Yeah, that's a great question, because it is so important to really be able to define something in order to be able to really delve into it and explore it. Human nature can be defined as the general psychological characteristics, feelings, beliefs of humankind as they relate to all humans. Okay, so as human beings, we're all individuals, and we all have our own likes and dislikes and motivations and different and so forth, of course. But there are certain elements that all human beings have. And when we understand them, by the way, we have those, that being human, we have the same ones as everybody else, those general psychological characteristics, feelings, and behavioral traits. Okay. It means that they are the nature of humans. And if we don't understand this, Marianne, then we're leaving ourselves open to acting without sufficient information when dealing with others. If we do understand it, now we're always in a position of strength. We always come from a place of realism. We come from a place of truth. And successful people deal in truths. And part of those truths is understanding the nature of things, and that means physical nature. Gravity. In our human experience, gravity works. It doesn't matter if you don't think it should, or if you wish it didn't. If you walk off a 7-story building, okay, you're going to fall and go boom. That just is how it is. That's understanding and respecting the laws of physical nature, the law of gravity. Okay. Economic nature. If you continue to spend more than you take in, you're going to go bankrupt. Okay. Whether you're a person, whether you're a state, whether you're a country, okay, you cannot sustainably. You can for a while, okay, but you cannot sustainably and forever spend more than what you take in and stay solvent. It's a law of economic nature. A law of economic nature is that people will exchange their money for that which they feel is of greater value than the money they're exchanging it for. Okay. Otherwise, why would they do it? Okay. So when we understand that, then we know that we've got to be able to communicate value to that other person over and above what we're asking them to pay, or they're not going to do it. Okay. That's economic nature. And then there's human nature, right? Again, the general psychological characteristics, feelings, and behavioral traits of humankind. As affects all humans. So what is that human nature? Well, again, it's what drives us. And so we've always got to start from that place. And so a really great man by the name of Harry Brown, who was a real hero of mine, he wrote a number of books actually that hit the New York Times bestsellers list. These were books on everything from economics to politics to philosophy. I mean, he was just fantastic. But to me, his best book ever was never intended to be published. In fact, it wasn't until after he passed away about 11, 12, 13 years ago. And it's a book that he actually wrote as a sales training manual for his sales team back in the 60s. And after he passed, his widow, Pamela, found these 2 transcripts and fortunately told someone about them who told someone about them who knew an independent publisher who published it. And I'm so glad that happened, because the world would have lost some immense wisdom had that not happened. But part of these 2 brief manuscripts he wrote, the first was about human nature itself. The second was how human nature aligns with or affects sales. So the book was called The Secret of Selling Anything. He did not title it, but that comes from a line in the book where he said, "The secret of selling need not be a secret. Simply find out what the other person wants and help them to get it." Right? That was the big secret of selling. So I think the title, though, almost it doesn't mislead, because it was about selling, but it was really just a great understanding of human nature. And I'd go so far as to say, if there was, when you get that question, if there was one book only, and there's thousands, but if there was one book only that you were going to give to, your 18-year-old son or daughter and say, this is a manual, this is the manual you need to understand life and live a successful life, that would actually be the book. And so what Harry did was he talked about, in terms of understanding human nature, why people will take action. Okay. And what he said was there are three, in this part of the book, he talked about three basic principles. So again, this is not my stuff. This is Harry's, and all credit goes to him. So what he said first, there are three principles we need to understand. So the first is that everyone seeks happiness. Everyone seeks happiness. Now, we need to, of course, define happiness, right? So let's first just do the dictionary definition, which is the mental feeling of well-being. Everyone seeks happiness, which is the mental feeling of well-being. Now, I personally define happiness a tiny bit deeper than that. Whereas I would say that happiness is a genuine and ongoing feeling of joy and peace of mind, the result of living congruently with one's values. Okay. So, but for what Harry's talking about here, a mental feeling of well-being definitely works for, in terms of defining happiness. So everyone seeks happiness. Number one, everyone seeks happiness. Now, what Harry said is people do what they believe will make them happy. That's important. People do what they believe will make them happy. Now, not every act brings happiness. Individuals make mistakes, but every act that a human being takes is aimed at bringing happiness, that mental feeling of well-being. So everyone seeks happiness. Now, number two, happiness is relative. Okay. So while we all seek happiness, we don't all understand happiness the same way. That's important. Happiness is relative. In other words, people experience happiness in different ways. People place different values on different things. So what brings happiness to one person is absolutely meaningless to another, or very might well even result in that person being unhappy. Okay, so we've got those first two. Everyone seeks happiness. Happiness is relative. Now, the third one kind of brings it all home, and that is resources are limited. Now, please don't, and Marianne, you know me well enough to know that I would ask people not to confuse that with lack thinking. Okay, so our universe is indeed very, very abundant. However, there are limitations in certain regards. So in other words, no matter who we are, we all have a limited amount of time, energy, money, and options. Thus, we must make choices. Every day we make thousands of choices, most of them unconsciously. We make thousands of them, most of them unconsciously. But we make every one of those choices based on whether we think it's going to bring us closer to happiness, based on how we understand happiness, and within the limited number of choices or options we believe we have. So here's what we need to understand in terms of business. Your buyer will choose whether or not to buy from you based on whether your product or service is, in their mind, likely to bring him or her happiness according to their personal understanding of happiness as measured against their resources or available options. Does that make sense?
Oh my gosh, that makes perfect sense, Bob. And it has me thinking, if happiness is like a primary motivator of a human being, why do so many people make decisions that are bound to make them miserable?
Yeah. Almost as though they're not that they do it consciously, purposely, but almost it's like they seem to head that direction, don't they? It's like they make decisions constantly that end up in their being miserable, right? So how does that square with everyone seeking happiness? So remember the definition that we basically used for happiness, the mental feeling of well-being. So, and this is one of those just disturbing, in a sense, aspects of human nature. Remember, we all see the world through our own basic set of beliefs. Okay, our what I call our unconscious operating system. These beliefs, and a belief can really be defined as a subjective truth. It's the truth as you or I understand the truth to be, not necessarily as the truth is. So in other words, our truth might not necessarily and often isn't the truth. Okay. We all see the world from our own unique set of beliefs, and these beliefs were handed to us. And by the time we're a little more than toddlers, our basic view of the world, our belief system about how the world works is pretty much set in stone. And it's scary to think, but most of us go through our entire lives, again, subject to an unconscious operating system, and we think we're acting out of free will and conscious choice, when really, typically, our choices are all made within a preset matrix that we had, again, nothing to do with forming. I mean, that's scary. So it's only when we're really seeking out consciousness and understanding that we have even a chance of breaking out of this matrix. And even when we understand, it's still something we've got to continually work on and keep in mind and work through. So we see the world in a certain way. We see it as being a truth. Okay. Now, we have a mental feeling of well-being when our world is acting congruently with how we understand it. So let me give you an example. And this is, kind of a sad example, but it's something we see quite a bit. Let's say someone is brought up as the child of an abusive relationship. Now, certainly this person does not think that's a good thing. They're not consciously thinking, wow, this is really great how my parents argue and yell and abuse each other. I want to marry someone just like that. Now, I don't think anyone consciously thinks that. But this is their truth. This is, to them, how they understand their world. And there's a mental feeling of well-being in understanding it. Okay. So they get older and they start dating, and they meet someone who just treats them with kindness and respect and values them. And it feels kind of good, but there's something a little bit wrong with it in their mind, okay? Because that's not really how the world operates. That's not what a relationship is in their mind, in their view of the world, their truth about how the way the world works. So their mental feeling of well-being is a little bit off. And so what they do is they will often end up unconsciously sabotaging that relationship and getting back on course, which is their truth, which is an unhealthy relationship. And this goes on, and they'll meet good people and they'll mess those up. We've all heard about the person who just seems to somehow, some way messes up every good relationship, right? And they go back and they finally, unfortunately, will often meet and marry that person where the process of an abusive relationship is duplicated. Okay. Maxwell Maltz explains this concept expertly, I think, in his 1960s classic, Psycho-Cybernetics. The name sounds fancy, but it's really very simply written. It really basically just says we see the world a certain way. We have our preset beliefs that were handed to us. That's the way we see the world, and our mind is sort of like one of those self-seeking missiles that where it can get off course, but it's always going to end up at the target, and that target is the way we see the world. So there are people, if they see the truth as being money is a horrible thing, and if people who have money are dishonest, people who have money had to get it by stepping on the toes of others or do things dishonestly, and they consider themselves to be a good, honest person, then whenever a lot of money comes into their lives, what are they going to do? They're unconscious, because remember, their mental feeling of well-being, it's not congruent with their having money. So they're going to find a way to shut that out or sabotage it or whatever. So there's people who, in a sense, the only way they can be happy in terms of a mental feeling of well-being is to be unhappy. If they see the world as being that of, it's natural to be unhappy, then that's what they're going to keep shooting for. So, when we see ourselves or someone doing that, we've got to start questioning our premises and ask why it is that we do that. And we need to dig deep into that. And it can be with a professional, or it can be through books, or it can be in discussion groups, or what have you. But we need to find out why our mental feeling of well-being is not congruent with actually prosperity, in terms of whether it's financial, physical, spiritual, mental, emotional, social, relational, what have you.
That makes a lot of sense, Bob. There's something you say which is rather counterintuitive, and it's that most people truly don't understand the meaning of profit motive. So tell us, what is profit motive, and what is its real, I'm doing air quotes here, significant meaning that we're not really thinking of?
Yeah, this is something else I learned from Harry. When he makes the point that, and again, as I say this, you'll understand that it's probably not going to mean what it appears to mean at first. So I'll ask people to withhold judgment till we're able to really, go into a little bit of detail. And what Harry says is every person is motivated by the profit motive, or everyone acts based on the profit motive. Now, I can guarantee you, people listening to this, even though I just said, don't worry, it's going to be different from what I guarantee there's people who are resisting this and, I thought you were a nice guy, Burg. What are you saying? You're saying I do everything based on the profit motive. What do you think? Money's everything? Well, of course, money isn't everything. It was never intended to be. Money also isn't the only form of profit. Okay, so let's look at what profit really is. Again, let's define our terms as we defined human nature and we defined happiness, so we could really have a good understanding of it. Okay, and again, this was what Harry had said about this. Profit is simply an increase in happiness. Profit is an increase in happiness, the result of exchanging one situation for a better situation. Let me repeat that one more time, if I may. Profit is an increase in happiness, the result of exchanging one situation for a better situation. Financial profit, as I mentioned, is just one form of profit. Profit can be financial, but it can also be, again, physical, spiritual, mental, emotional, social, relational, and a number of other ways. So let me give you an explanation, if I may, an example outside of financial in terms of profit. Let's talk about relational, and let's say there are two people. One is Jack, and the other is Jill. Okay, and Jack and Jill, they're in their early 20s, and they meet each other. And Jack and Jill are both in, they're both single. And they date a few times, and they get to know each other, and they really, really like each other. And they decide that they want to have a steady monogamous relationship with one another. Okay. That was based on the profit motive. Why? Because Jack and Jill both believed that they would increase their happiness as a result of exchanging one situation, being single, for a better situation, being a monogamous couple. Okay, they were doing it for an increase in happiness. That's profit. That's the profit motive. Now, someone might say, well, Bob, but wait a second. What if they just don't get along at all? They're miserable and they break up. Well, remember what we said earlier when we said everyone seeks happiness. Not every act brings happiness. Individuals make mistakes, but every act is aimed at bringing happiness. And I would say every act is aimed at making a profit, an increase in happiness based on exchanging one situation for another situation. If Jack and Jill didn't think it would be profitable or an increase in happiness to have decided to be in a monogamous relationship, they wouldn't have done it. But because they thought it would, they did. That is the profit motive. Well, we bring that back to everything in life. Okay. So if we're in a position where we want to persuade someone to take a certain action, maybe to give up smoking or give up drugs or to go to school or to buy a product or a service or whatever it happens to be. Okay. If we're we've got to understand that what we want them to do isn't the issue, that they're going to do it only because they believe that they will be better off in terms of happier, right? The profit motive, happier by exchanging the current situation with that other situation.
So does that bring us back around to, the go-giver in many ways, where people really have to start asking questions to find out what that happiness could be?
Oh, sure. Because remember, as human beings, we understand the world through our own set of beliefs. And we tend to believe that the way we see the world is basically the way everyone else sees the world, which makes intuitive sense, right? It's all we know, how we see the world. But it's not true. Other people see the world differently than the way we see it. Remember when we were talking about everyone seeks happiness, but happiness is relative. People understand happiness differently. That's why you see a salesperson who says, oh, what I love most about this product is, well, who cares? It's not about what they love most about the product. It's what the prospect loves most about the prospect and how the benefits of that product or service is going to add value to their lives. And yes, so that's why we must ask questions and we must listen, not from the point of view of seeing it through our eyes, but through the point of view of that person's eyes. And then we need to ask clarifying questions and we need to repeat back to make sure that what they said is what we understood. And, we always need to do it in a tactful and diplomatic way so the person doesn't feel defensive, but feels very, very safe with us and very able to correct us and let us know where we're off base.
Do you think from a sales perspective, when people are kind of trying to understand what, let's say, a business owner is, what's kind of motivating them, what they need, they are asking the questions, figuring that out, is also trying to find out how much work it's going to be for them, something that they would consider to kind of tie that in, going, as part of an objective, saying, hey, it's not going to take as much work. We can make this happen for you. Do you find that that's kind of a thing?
Well, it depends upon that person, that prospect. For example, you bring up a wonderful example about it not taking that much time. Okay, so there are buyers who buy for different reasons. There are people who buy, based on low price. Now, I'm just going to say far less than what we think there are. And even most people who think they're price buyers really aren't, because we can all give great examples of people who went into a store and said, oh, I'm just interested in the lowest price. And then they came away with something much more expensive that they loved. And they were glad, right, that the salesperson had the patience to work with them and stuff. So as Art Subcheck says, typically it's not a price situation. It's a value question. But there are people, that said, there are certainly people who their biggest motivator is low price. Again, far fewer than what we would think, but there are those. Okay, so there are price buyers. There are status buyers, right? They want to, they're the keep up with the Jones people. They want to look good. They want other people to see that car or that whatever it is and what have you. There are some people who are what do you call it? Bells and whistles buyers. They love all the lights and the blinky things and all the, that just makes them feel good. That's, who they are. It's what they like and so forth. And then there are people that are convenience buyers. That's me. I can't tell you how many times that that I've been the prospect and the person really didn't take the time to understand, even when I told them that that's what, well, in other words, with me, the easier you make it for me to take action, the greater the chances that's going to happen. You know what I'm saying? It's just how I am. Now I'm a relationship buyer. You've got to be. I've got to really feel good. Again, assuming it's a high dollar sale or what have you. I've got to feel good about you, and I'm also the type that makes decisions very quickly. Okay, I either get it or I don't. But the biggest thing with me is the easier you make it for me, the more I feel I'm going to have to work hard to have something happen, the less the chances are I'm going to buy. So again, it's just understanding that it's taking the time to get to know that person and asking the right questions to discover, what they're really about.
Well, Bob, thank you so much for taking the time to go over that. And I know you cover a lot of these topics on your podcast, and I know listeners will want to go check that out as well. It's one of my favorite podcasts. But before we let you go, tell us about what Harry Browne called the ultimate fallacy.
Yeah, this was really, to me, one of the wisest things of all. And he said, and again, it goes back to profit, right? Which again is not necessarily about money. Profit being the increase in happiness, the result of exchanging one situation for a better situation. And what he called the universal fallacy is the belief that an individual would willingly accept something unprofitable to himself or herself. Okay, let me repeat that. The universal fallacy is the belief that an individual would willingly accept something unprofitable to himself or herself. Now, so they will accept something, but not willingly. In other words, if you point a gun at someone and say, give me your money or your life, assuming they value their life more than their money, well, they'll give you their money. They won't do it willingly. They'll do it because they have a gun pointed at them, but they will do it. They will accept something unprofitable to themselves. But other than that, other than through compulsion, nobody is ever going to do something unprofitable to them. So in other words, they're not going to purposely make themselves unhappier. And this is what we always need to remember when we are either in the sales or any type of persuasion process, that we've got to make it so that it's profitable for that person to do business with us, or to be our friend, or to be our spouse, or to take an action we want them to take. It must be profitable to them. Profitable meaning it will increase their happiness by doing so.
I think that's so important that people understand that. And a lot of people don't even understand how human nature and happiness come together, like how you've explained during this time. And it makes such sense, when you look at the entire picture.
This is really what Harry's book was all about. And that's why, I go back to that, that suggestion, if there was that one book, to give my 18-year-old, that would be it. Because to me, the understanding of because who are we dealing with? Humans, right? I mean, in terms of decision making and so forth. And so yeah, I mean, to have an understanding of human nature, you're 9 steps ahead of the game in a 10-step game. Without that understanding of human nature, you're always going to be wondering why this or that didn't happen. When you understand human nature, you always ultimately know why someone did not do a certain thing. They didn't feel it was profitable to them. They didn't feel it would bring them closer to happiness based on how they understand happiness and within the limited amount of choices or options they believe they have.
Well, I'd also say that someone would get the Go Giver book as well, because it's made such a huge impact on my business and helped me develop my business. No, thank you. It was the book that I read when I first started my business years ago, and it really helped me define what I am and what I'm not. And I love that book. Absolutely love it.
Wow. Well, that makes me happy to know that. Thank you.
Well, Bob, I know we could talk for hours. Where can our listeners connect with you? And please share your podcast with us as well. It's one of my favorite.
Thank you. They can pretty much find everything at Burg, BURG.com. And we also have a new online community that my partner Kathy Tajanel and I are starting, called the Go-Giver Success Alliance online community. So that's going to be a lot of fun as well. So they can get information there at the website as well.
Well, Bob, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show with us here today.
My absolute pleasure. I always love speaking with you.
Well, thank you, Bob. It has been such an honor to spend this time with you and to talk about human nature and happiness. Again, if you'd like to connect with Bob, you can at burg.com for more information. That's B-U-R-G. Also, you'll want to check out the Go-Giver book. It's available at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and all indie retailers. And if you don't see it on the shelf, ask for them to order it. And of course, it's available on Kindle. You'll also want to check out Bob's podcast. It's one of my favorites, and it just helps you to be a better person. Well, we're at the end of our time today. I would like to thank everyone for tuning in. You're listening to Moments with Marianne. And remember, make every moment count.
In a single moment, your life can change. Moments with Marianne is a transformative hour that covers an endless array of topics with the best of the best. Her guests are leaders in their fields, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, and business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Each guest is gifted and a true visionary, a recognized leader in her own work, and while teaching others to develop, refocus, and grow, Marianne will bring the best guest and sometimes a special surprise. Don't miss this. You never know just which moment will change your life forever. Moments with Marianne airs every Sunday, Monday, Thursday, and Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern and 5 p.m. Pacific Time. Make sure to tune in and visit momentswithmarianne.com for more information.